All right, everyone, today we're going to unbox and review the Krikzz Everdrive GBA. What's up, everyone? So here's our package from Krikzz. Let's cut this open and show you guys what's inside. It took us about two and a half weeks to get this, so it wasn't too bad. On some of the original ones we purchased from Krikzz, it took longer, but that was right at the beginning of the whole issue that's going on in Ukraine right now with Russia. Things, it seems like, have gotten a little bit better now, but this only took a couple weeks, which was pretty good coming from the Ukraine. So let's just cut this open and see what we've got inside here. All right, you guys, so here's the plastic case. We've taken it out of the box and it looks pretty good. I mean, what you would expect out of one of these. It's the game box itself is plastic. You've got a wraparound cover. You've got some details regarding what this is. There's a QR code here. Scan for OS updates. That's pretty good. Then just information. We've got all save types supported. No ROM patching required. Fast loading. Most games load within 1 to 2 seconds. Hard gold plating for cartridge contacts. 256 megabyte PS RAM. 32 megabyte ROM memory, 1 megabyte SRAM, 128 kilobyte save memory, real-time clock support, low power consumption, NES, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, ROM formats are supported, emulation mode. So that means that we should be able to put ROM files from NES, Game Boy, and Game Boy Color on the same cartridge here and play it along with the Game Boy Advance games. Let's open this thing up, see what it looks like. Okay, this is the inside. We've got, this is just a piece of cardboard here with a QR code that you can scan to do updates on the cartridge itself. And then we've got the cartridge. So we'll take a look at this. Everything looks good. Plastic feels very good. High quality. This is a clear plastic shell. They've got a couple versions of these. Just check it out on their website and see which one you like the best. I like this here where it says Everdrive in gold. I think that looks pretty cool. There's also a screw back here. So if you notice here, right above the corner, there's a battery installed. So this is good because if the battery goes dead over time, you can just take this screw out, replace the battery, and then be ready to rock and roll again. Up on top, we've got our SD card slot, or micro SD card slot rather. And then we've just got the general information on the front, Everdrive GBA Mini. If you can see up here at the top, embossed in the plastic, it says Everdrive, similar to how the Game Boy Advance games have their letters on the top. So that looks pretty good. You know, I will say overall with Krikzz, I'm very happy with every product that we've gotten from them. We've purchased a number of their cartridges and every one of them works flawlessly. I haven't had any issues with any of them. The build quality is great. The plastic has a really good feel, just like it should, just as good as the original, and everything works right. So I can't speak highly enough about Everdrive or Krikzz. If you guys are interested in doing something like this, I mean, this is a situation where maybe there's some games that you can't find, or there's games that are very expensive and you can't afford. Well, this is a way that you can possibly play those games. You can get the files, put them on the SD card, plug them into here, put it in your GBA and play it. So I think that's pretty cool. And what we're going to do next is we are going to dump some files over onto this, and then we will get ready to play this. One more thing I'll note here, and we're going to try to test it out. I'm hoping that it works because it's going to be the best way for me to do game capture for you guys. So we've got an Analogue Pocket, and I haven't tried it, but I'm going to see if we can get this to run in the Analogue Pocket. I have no reason to think it wouldn't, but I don't know. I haven't tried it. But we'll try it out, and if it works, we will do game capture through that HDMI port from the dock of the Analogue Pocket so that you guys can see what we're seeing and not just something on a small handheld screen, but you can see how it works, and I think that'd be the best case scenario. Again, I don't know if it's supported, if it's going to work. I haven't tried it, but we will try it, and I'll let you know one way or the other. Either way, I'm sure it's going to be a good product and work just like it should, and we'll let you know what we find out here, and you'll see it with us. But I'm hopeful that we can hook it up to that Analogue Pocket, plug it into the dock, and then run it through our game capture device. All right, you guys, so what we're taking a look at here is the Krikzz homepage. We're going to show you where to get your files, everything you need to get this up and running. So what you want to do first of all is you'll want to get your SD card formatted. Now, if you'll notice here on the left, we've got all our files. The SD card's already finished, but we are going to format it just as you would in case you had items on your drive. Now, take into consideration that whenever you format a drive, it will erase everything on there. So if you don't want to erase the files, you need to put it somewhere else, because whenever you're going to format it, everything's going to be erased. So we're just going to right click on our drive, and we are going to go to Format. It's going to pull up this menu here, and you can give it a name if you'd like. I'm not worried about that. We just click Start. Formatting will erase all data. Okay. All right, so we've got it formatted. That part's done. So if I want to open it back up. All right, so we've got our folder open for our SD card. It's been formatted, everything's good. Now what we want to do is go to the Krikzz website, and you'll notice at the top, downloads. So you'll click downloads, and then you're going to find the cartridge that you have. In this case, we have the Everdrive GBA, so we're just going to left click on that. And then wherever you see the OS for the operating system, we will click on that folder. And then you're going to click on the most recent version, which is down here at the bottom. Now this may be different depending on when you watch this video, but currently this is the most recent version, the v1.16. So we're just going to left click on that, and it will automatically download. Now we've already got this downloaded, but that's what you do. So once you get that downloaded, it's going to go to a zip file. Now when it goes to the zip file, you're going to right click on it, and you're going to extract everything. So we'll click Extract All, Extract. And then here we go. So here's what's inside this GBASYS. And what you're going to do is you're just going to hold it down, drag and drop it onto a different folder or somewhere. We got to have this file within your SD card. So if we go back to our SD card, we're going to drag and drop it onto there. All right, so now we've got our SD card with our operating system on there from Krikzz. Now what you can do is you can drag and drop game files on here directly onto this folder, or if you would like, you can create subfolders, and that's what I've done. I've got, if you see over here, I've already got these created. I've got GB for Game Boy, GBA, Game Boy Advance, GBC, Game Boy Color, and NES for NES. This will play all of those. So what we're going to do is, all you're going to do is you're just going to put your game files that you have within those folders, or just drag and drop them individually. But I'm going to drag and drop those folders over onto our SD card. Now, what I will say, I've only got a couple games in each one of these just for this test here, but if you've got a bunch of games in each one of these, then it may be very slow depending on how many you have. It might be easier to do them one at a time or however you want, but just take that into consideration. So now we've got our games. Now, one thing to note here is we're doing emulation on the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and NES. And the reason why is because this is a Game Boy Advance that we're working with, and in order to play these other games, it's got to be emulated. So how do we do that, you may be asking? Well, what we're going to do is we go to this GBA SYS folder, and then you'll see at the top there's another folder that's EMU for emulation. So you're going to open that up and you're going to click on the README. Now Krikzz has some basic information here in regards to what you need to do. So if you see here, System Game Boy, Game Boy Color, NES, this will also play Neo Geo Pocket, Master System, Game Gear. I'm not sure how great these are or not, but we're just going to stick with the Nintendo stuff for this demonstration. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Goomba and download the different emulators here. And I'll show you what those look like in the websites, and we'll even put that down in the description so that you have it. But you're going to go to each one of these and download them. And then the key here is once you get them downloaded, we've got to rename each one of these emulators to make sure it matches this format up here. So what we're going to do is I'll show you the Goomba one, the website you're going to go to. Alright, so here we are at the webpersona.com/Goomba website. This is where you're going to download the Game Boy emulator. If you see here, I've got it highlighted, Goomba version 2.0. You're going to click on that and it's going to download a zip file. So we'll left click on it. Let's open it up. Okay, so you're going to extract the files, and then these are going to be the files inside. And all we want to focus on here is this guy right here, this .gba file. Now, since this is for the Game Boy, if we reference back to our instructions from Krikzz, the Game Boy is going to be gb.gba. That way, the cartridge knows if you're going to open up a Game Boy game that it's going to use this emulator. So we're going to assign one of these for each one of these game systems. So this file needs to be changed, have the name changed, and let's go to the actual one so I can extract it. So here's Goomba 20. Let's extract it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to rename it gb.gba. So that way we know that it's, and actually I'm going to use lowercase, gb.gba. So this way we know this is for the Game Boy. And then what we'll do is we will go to our, let me see, we can copy it, and then we're going to go to our EMU folder, and we can paste it in here. Okay, so now we've got our Game Boy emulator. Now the next one was the Game Boy Color. So that's right here. Again, I'll put a link so that you guys can find these, but here's the version that's, as far as we're doing this right now, this is the most modern version. So we're just going to click download. Again, that's going to download, and then we will go to our downloads. And we will extract all. Okay, so here we are again. We see Goomba.gba. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the file name, because this is for the Game Boy Color. We're going to change it to gbc.gba. Okay, now we will copy this, and then we're going to go back over again to our file, and we will paste it in here. This is our SD card. So now we've got the GB, the GBC. All right. So now we've got one more to do, which is the Pocket NES. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to click download. And we will open that up. Okay, so here's the Pocket NES. We're just going to right click, extract all. Same thing, you see here the .gba file. We're going to rename it, and then we're going to do nes.gba. Just copy, and we can paste that over into our SD card file. Okay, so this is what your EMU folder should look like right here. GB, GBC, and the NES. GB for Game Boy, GBC for Game Boy Color, and the NES for the NES. Now, essentially what that's going to do, again, is whenever you try to play one of those game types, it will use that emulator to play it. So we're going to go back. Here's our file structure. We've got Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and NES. You can put whatever files you want to put on here to play. And then this should be ready to go. So what we're going to do now is we are going to remove the SD card from the computer, plug it into the cartridge, and then we're going to try it out in a handheld device, and then we're going to try it out on the Analogue Pocket. We'll do the Analogue Pocket by itself so you can see it, and then we'll really get into it with the screen share we're going to do via our Elgato so that you can see what it actually looks like using that and putting it onto a television. Okay, so we've got our files loaded up onto the Everdrive GBA Mini from Krikzz. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do just a quick test on our device to show you that it works. And then we're going to plug this into our Analogue Pocket and do game capture so that you guys can really see how it's working. And that's really the ideal of why we wanted this, was to be able to play it on a TV using a Nintendo Switch Pro controller and do game capture whenever we want to. And I think that's really the best case scenario for this. If you want to play it on a handheld device, that's fine. I mean, yeah, the Analogue Pocket is a handheld, but you can also play it on your TV. But for what we're going to do here is we've got our DS. We do not have a original Game Boy Advance, and the reason why is because we've had this for a number of years now, and it just works out easier. We can play Game Boy Advance games on this or DS games. And all we got to do here is just remove this little cover from the bottom and plug in our cartridge. There we go. So one thing to take into consideration before we start this up, this DS does have some issues with the screen. It's just old and been used a lot, so it doesn't look really that great. But that's okay for what we're going to do. I'm just going to start this up and show you that the games will work and what they look like on here. And then we'll get into the actual game capture so you guys can really see the potential of this thing. But let's start this up here. So we'll just go through these real quick. Let's go to the Game Boy, get this started up. We'll do Tetris. Yep, so it sounds just as it should. Let's just get the game started here. All right. So everything's working just like it should, no problems. The buttons are responsive, everything works fine. Yeah, I'm not doing very good at the game right now, but that's my fault. It's nothing to do with the game itself. But you see how it works. So that was Game Boy. Now let's check out Game Boy Color. We'll do the puzzle game here. This is a Japanese game, but it's similar to one of those bubble games you would play on your mobile phone or whatever whenever you're trying to match up the colors of the bubbles. All right. Let's get this thing going. All right, so all you're gonna do is just point your bubbles wherever you want them to go. And that's it. Pretty simple game, but it's a fun game to play, especially if you're familiar with these types of matching games. But it's working fine. There's no issue with it. It looks good. It sounds good. No issue with the buttons. So this is a success. So now we're going to try out a Game Boy Advance game. Let's try Gradius. Okay. So everything's working just as it should. I don't see any issues with it. It looks good, sounds good, just as you would expect with the original cartridge, which is the ideal here. Okay, we're going to do Contra. Everybody knows Contra. All right, here we go. Oh, well, they got us. But anyways, you see how it's working. I mean, everything looks good, sounds good, works just like it should, no problems. All right, so I think this is a success. I mean, we see that all the games, whether it be Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Advance, even the NES, it's all working great, no issues. I think this is definitely a success for Krikzz. We've had a lot of positive success with all of the other Krikzz cartridges and products that we have. Never had actually one issue with any of them. And this is no exception. It works just fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this off and we're going to plug everything into our Analogue Pocket and then do a game capture so you guys can see firsthand, just like we're seeing everything, of how it performs, and then go from there. So here we are in the Analogue Pocket menu, and this is running through our dock for the Analogue Pocket and then into the TV. So we're able to share game capture with this. And this is the real reason why I wanted the Krikzz cartridge for the GBA. And that's so that we can play through our Analogue Pocket onto the TV. And then if we want to do game capture from any game, it's easy to do that with the Analogue Pocket via the dock. So that's what we have right here, and it's a good way for me to really show you guys the ability for this thing to play these different games. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go right into it. We've got our cartridge installed, and we've got a couple games loaded onto the Everdrive to show you. All right, so we've got a few different folders here. We've got our Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and NES. Now, this is a Game Boy Advance cartridge, and to play the other Game Boy consoles and the NES console, we downloaded some emulators onto the Krikzz cartridge to do that. Now you can also do, I believe, the Game Gear and maybe some others, but for what we're doing here, we just wanted to focus on these and take into consideration this is a Game Boy Advance cartridge, so that's what this is designed to do. However, there is the ability to play the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and NES on here via that emulation. Krikzz also sells Game Boy and Game Gear and different cartridges that you can get from them to play those as well, if you would like to do that. But this is how we're going to do it on here, just to show you guys. So we'll start at the top. We'll go into our Game Boy folder, and we've got a couple games just to show you. So Tetris, everybody knows Tetris, so we'll just start off with that to show you guys how it works. Start game. All right, so here we are. This is booting up. And we do have this as far as our view goes on the Analogue Pocket. We've got this set up for the analog view, which cleans it up a little bit. We don't have the scan lines and everything is very crisp. You may or may not like that, so that depends on what you want to do. If you want to have the scan lines and everything to look more like a traditional Game Boy, you've got the ability to do that on the Analogue. But that's why it looks the way it does right now, because I prefer this look. So what we're going to do is we'll just jump into a game and show you how it works. Okay, we've got our music going. Everybody knows these songs. Everything looks good, sounds good. Let's just start it off here. Okay. Okie dokie. So everything's playing just like you would expect. We're using our Nintendo Switch Pro controller, which works great on here because you can turn the console on and off with the controller as well, just like you would a Nintendo Switch. It links up easy. But as far as the game itself goes, with this cartridge, the Krikzz cartridge, it's working great. I don't notice any issues whatsoever. Okay, so this is Tetris. Again, we're all familiar with what this game is and how it works. And right now everything is working just like you would expect. Nothing different, nothing odd, nothing off. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back then and we're going to go into our next game that we had. And quick game, confirm, play cartridge, all right? Let's try the Game Boy Color. We got Puzzle Bobble 4. Let's do this. Looks really good. Okay, this is a Japanese game. I have no idea what any of these say. Let's do the first one. Normal. What character do we want? It doesn't matter. We'll get the old guy. Okay. So this is one of those games where you try to match the colors, I believe. Let me see. There we go. Okay. Gotcha. 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 Boom. Alright. So we got that level. So anyways, let's just talk about how it looks. Now obviously we are running this through our Analogue Pocket, which changes the way things look a little bit, that at least the way that we have it set up so that it clears everything up. But it looks great. Everything's playing just as it should, or as what I would expect it to anyway. And the sound is working just as it should. Again, at least to what I think it should sound like. Maybe somebody else would disagree with that, but I think it's pretty damn good. And yeah, everything looks and sounds great. So let's hop out of this game and let's go into our next one and check it out. Krikzz or Quicks, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but these games are pretty fun. They've got them for multiple consoles, and essentially what you've got is a background and some type of an enemy in the inside, and the idea is to make a line around the enemy so that you block out at least 75% or more of that area. And once you do that, you defeat that boss and you go to the next one. This looks really good right now. Speedy starts the adventure. All right, let's go Speedy. Yep. All right. Okay. I don't feel like talking to the Pokemon all day, so let's go. Let's go. Is it a beast? Who cares? Let's go. Come on. All right. So here we are, and the idea was for us to go to take up as much as the map as possible without getting hit. Now see, that thing is going to try to hit us, but I'm just going to keep pressing my luck here and take up as much of this map as I can. There we go. Just keep moving. Now you can make little squares here. Ah, he hit me. Okay, so you got to try to avoid him hitting you. Boom, got it. All right, so we got 75.9% of the stage cleared. All you got to do is get at least 75%, but we did that. So we've defeated this one. Go to the next one just to show you really quick what this looks like. But man, this really looks good. Here we go. We've got us another Pokemon. Who cares? And we're on to our next board. Same setup. Usually what happens each level, the enemy will go a little faster, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to win. Okay. Boom. Now we've just got a big section done. So what I'll do is I'll make these little squares if I have to just try to make it across a little bit quicker. Because again, you don't want to get hit by that thing. Up, just like I just did there. I got hit. Okay. All right. Got that one done. So anyways, this is a pretty simple game, but it's very fun. It's an addictive game to get into and keep playing. Again, they've got it for multiple consoles, but man, does this look really good or what? So everything's playing just like it should. The Krikzz cartridge is performing just as it should, as what I would expect it to. So let's hop out of here, and then we're going to get into our Game Boy Advance games. So first up, we got Banjo Pilot. Let's check it out here. Start game. This looks really good right now. Now, if you're familiar with Banjo-Kazooie or Diddy Kong Racing on the 64, I mean, that's where these characters come from. Let's jump into this real quick. Okay, what do we got? Quick race. Let's do a quick race. Do Kazooie. All right. So everything looks good. Sounds good. It's doing what it should do. Okay. All right. Now you'll notice how this is a full screen right now, and the other games weren't. That's because I've changed the sizing for the Game Boy Advance games via the Analogue Pocket to match the whole screen, and that's because the Game Boy Advance screen is a rectangular shape to begin with. So I didn't have to stretch it too much to fill up the whole screen without distorting everything. The original Game Boy games are different. You've got to stretch it out significantly to get it to fit, and it just really doesn't look that good. So that's why I didn't do that. But on this game, I didn't have to stretch it that much, and it still maintains a lot of that shape of the original one and looks pretty good. So that's why I decided to do that. Anyways, this is playing great. I can't notice any issues, any differences one way or the other to the original version. And yeah, we're doing good. So let's hop out of this. Okay, quick game. Now we're going to go back into our Game Boy Advance folder, and let's do F-Zero Maximum Velocity, and check this out. Oh yeah, sounds good, looks good. Yeah, we don't care. Grand Prix. Let's see. Okay, we'll take this one. I don't know the difference between pawn, knight, and bishop. Let's do the knight. Standard. I'm sure I'm gonna lose either way, so it doesn't really matter, but let's see what we got here. Okay, here we go. All right. Oh boy. Definitely got some sliding going on here. Don't know what I'm doing on this game, but everything's moving really well. It sounds good. If you can get past my awful driving skills on here. Outside of that, I mean, this thing's doing great. I don't notice any kind of lag or issues with the game itself. Low power. Okay. know what that's supposed to mean, but all right. So anyhow, yeah, this looks good. Everything's playing as it should be playing, so I don't think there's any issues whatsoever. All right, so let's hop out of here, and then let's go back to our cartridge. And we'll do Gradius Advance. Okay. Well, this looks really good. Okay. Start. Sure, let's start. Okay, all right. Start. Here we go. So this is a shooter. Looks pretty good. Definitely need to get us some speed here. Okay, a little better, going a little faster here. Yeah, so this is playing great. I mean, I don't see how it could be any better, honestly. This is the perfect combination too with this Analogue Pocket and the Krikzz cartridge together. And then we've got our Nintendo Pro controller. So, I mean, everything is working good, looking good. I can't see any issues whatsoever with this. Okay, so I think this is a win in my opinion. So let's get back to the menu here. So at this point we have seen a Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and now Game Boy Advance games. All of them work flawlessly, no issues. They sound good, they look good, everything plays good. Now let's try the NES. So again, for this cartridge, we've got an emulator software in the background that's running this, but I did throw a couple of NES games on here just to try out and show you guys how it works. Now, it's not as good as what it is on if you're just playing on the Nintendo itself. But hey, that's all right. We're not playing it on the Nintendo. This is to give somebody the ability to play Nintendo games on here if maybe they don't have that game or maybe they don't have a Nintendo. You know, one thing to take into consideration is the Nintendo doesn't have HDMI out, and this does. So if you want to do some game capture of an NES game and you don't want to have to deal with trying to get an original Nintendo or doing HDMI out to easily get game capture out of like an Elgato capture device, hey, this may be an option for you. You could use this Analogue Pocket with the dock like we have, some NES games, and be able to do that way. Let's start off. We got Clash at Demon Head. This is a pretty fun game. The way you progress through the game is pretty neat. If you've never played it, I definitely recommend checking it out. All right, so let's talk about what we're seeing right now, and that's kind of the worst thing, in my opinion, as far as this particular emulator goes for this cartridge. I didn't notice any issues with the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy, or the Game Boy on this, or even the Game Boy Advance. Everything works good, but when you get into this NES one, you'll notice there's a lot of flicker on the pixels. I'm not sure why that is, but it's not the file itself, because I've tried it on the actual NES Everdrive that we have, and this doesn't happen. So it's something to do with the emulator on this. But if we look away from this little flicker problem, everything works as it should without any issues. So we'll start this up. So our character's moving fine, left and right, no problem. Shooting fine. I don't notice any kind of lag or anything. It looks pretty good.
So yeah, no issues that I noticed anyway. Here we go. You're not a quitter, are you? Where's your camp? Okay, Hey, hey, hey. You haven't got a chance of getting to camp without the royal medallions of the 7 governors. Okay. So again, it's a little hard to read this because of that flicker effect, but it's mainly on the text that it does this, and I don't know why that is, but outside of that, everything works fine. I mean, there's no issues with the controls, and it looks pretty good. I mean, especially coming out of this analog, you've got good video quality. The only issue is that flicker effect that I can notice anyways, and I'm not sure why it does that, but whatever, it is what it is. This is just an option if you want it to be able to do game capture or gameplay of an NES game, HDMI out to your TV. So I think it's a win overall, and it's just an adder. I mean, the reality is the reason why you're really getting one of these devices, this cartridge, is to be able to play Game Boy Advance games or Game Boy games. The adder of just being able to play the NES, you know, that's just an added benefit to it. But I think this is the best case scenario for this cartridge, is to have an analog pocket to run it into. If you prefer the handheld, it works just fine, that's fine. I just like to be able to play it on the TV. I'm not crazy about the handhelds anymore. They're okay, but I'm not traveling around. Maybe if I was in an airplane all the time or something, that'd be fine, but I'm not doing that. And maybe for a kid, it's better, but for me, I'd prefer to play on the TV, a little larger, easier to see, and it works great for that. But this Everdrive cartridge works perfect, just like all the others. We've got these cartridges for the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the 64, the Genesis, and the Master System. Haven't had one issue out of any of those. They all work flawlessly, and this is no exception to that. So now that we've showed you that everything's working okay on here, now what we're going to do is we're just going to hop out of this and give you some closing remarks of what we think overall of this thing, and go from there. All right, you guys, so you just seen us unbox and review the Krikzz Everdrive GBA. Now, across the board, Krikzz has very good quality products. The plastic shell is great, it feels good in your hand, it looks good, and it works just like it should, which is obviously the most important. If you're looking for games that maybe you couldn't find because they're very rare, or they're very expensive, or they weren't released in your area, well, this is an option for you to be able to get your hands on and play and enjoy some of these games, really what they were meant to do anyways. It's a shame that some of the prices of games just across the board have gotten to the point to where a lot of people can't buy them and enjoy them because of that. So this is a way that you can enjoy some games that you couldn't otherwise maybe get your hands on. They not only play in a original GBA, but you can also put it in an analog pocket and enjoy it that way, and even play it on your screen on your TV, which is a great option. I can't speak highly enough about the build quality that these guys have. We've purchased a lot of products from them now, and they've really got their act together. Don't go wasting your time and money on some kind of a rip-off thing you get off Amazon or somewhere else. If you're wanting to get one of these, just put the money up front. They're not too expensive, and do the right thing and buy one of these. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, and until next time, keep gaming.